Hi, and welcome to another video tutorial. Today we're looking at subforms, which is a continuation of what we did on forms. Okay, so we're going to use the same database we started with, that is 2025 May June paper 4. We're going to use the same database to handle subforms, right? There are four ways to create subforms in Access, that is using a form wizard or dragging a form into another form, or even a query into another form, or where you can also use the subform, which is a control under the design view. And then again, we can also use the manual way of creating a subform. Okay, again, this is also in the design view. All right. So before we continue this video, as usual, let's subscribe to the channel, right? Let's hit the like button, share the video, and let others also benefit from this great work. It takes a lot of hard work to get videos done. So your subscription just comes as a way of encouragement to do more videos. So just hit the subscription button and then hit the like button and share the video. All right, so let's move on straight to the first way. The first way is to use a form wizard. There are some steps here to go about it. That is, if you want to use the steps. So I will jump straight into the database. All right. So this is a database we are using. According to the May June paper, we're supposed to create a form, right? And then a subform. So I'm going to use the trader table in creating this particular form. So trader, we go to create, and then you go to form wizard, and you click on all this arrow because that is what we want to do, right? So after you have selected all this here, we're going to go back to the tables to select the subform, right? So we, in this case, have created two queries here. So I'm going to use this here, that's a car sold, right? So this query here is going to be for the subform. So once I select this query and click on this to bring it all in, the form wizard will automatically see the set of fields that I'm bringing in the second time from a different table or a query as a subform. So when I click on next, you see clearly here that it's showing that this is a form with a subform, right? Then we go to next. So we're going to leave it at the data sheet and then go to next and finish, right? So clearly you've seen that this here is the sub form below it, and that's the main form. We're going to go into the design view and modify this a bit. So in the design view, just going to modify this a bit. I'm going to move this here to the top here, so, and bring the heading right above it, reduce the length of this field slightly, and this here looks pretty much like what was asked in the question, right? In the exams, right? So here, if I now come in here, that is what I have. I'll go to the layout view, and just to make a bit of adjustment, I can equally do this in the datasheet view. I click on this and double click on that to reduce the fields right there. Okay, so this is the first way of creating subforms, right? Now, the second approach is to drag a query or a form into the subform. So again, we go into the design view. Once you're in the design view, you drag and drop. Okay, so in dragging and dropping, in this case here, I have created another query, and I want to use a trader ID here to link the trader table, which is this one here. Okay, right. Now, once this is done, it gives you only the field that is related to this particular trader ID. So I'm going to go to next and finish, right? So if we go back again to the form view, we notice that we have just the form that is related to that particular record. Now, if I scroll all the way to the end, I notice that I have the trader ID as part of the query, right? Or sorry, as part of the forms that is showing here. So, but we don't want this as part of our answer. So since we don't want this as part of the answer, you right click on it and go to hide fields. Again, in the layout view, we can also do some adjustment, reduce the width of the table, and you go to the far end of this form. This looks too big. Okay, so we just drag it in there, all right? And I click on that and double click in here to readjust the length. Okay, so this are the two ways of creating forms. We've seen using the form wizard, and in addition to the form wizard, to create a second field or to create a second subform within this particular form, use a drag and drop approach. Is that okay? Okay, so we've used the form wizard and making use of the drag and drop approach. Okay, we'll take the drag and drop approach again, so we appreciate that again. So we're going to look at the drag and drop approach again. All right. So this is the first. We'll keep this as the first approach, which is using the form wizard. So the reason why I use the drag and drop approach to get the second subform here is that the form wizard is able to create only one subform. Okay, you are not able to create two subforms with the form wizard. And the reason why I have to use the drag and drop approach for the subsequent one. So we're going to close this here and we're going to say yes. We're going to save this and we'll leave it as trader. Let's leave this as one. So I'll leave this as trader one just to distinguish it from the subsequent one we're going to create. So next we're going to do the drag and drop approach. So with the drag and drop approach, we're going to create a form. So again, I'm going to go to create form wizard and then I select all fields, next, and then finish, right? Then you go to the design view, okay, and extend the field here, right? Reduce this field size, okay? And then you basically drag and drop in whatever you want. So I'm dragging and dropping in here a query, okay? And then I go to next. Now this here is not allowing me to do that because in this particular query, I have not added the trader ID as part of the query. So I'm going to use none and say next and go to finish, right? So when I go to the form view, it brings out a lot of records that is not really related to this trader ID. Is that okay? So in order to make this here relate to that, then what it means is that we need to go into the design view of this query here. Okay. When you go to the design view of this query here, you bring in the trader ID and we can even limit it to one, or we can just leave it that way. We run it here. Okay. We save and then I'm going to close this form here. Here, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to open this again. Now, this is this, all right? Okay, so this here didn't, right. So I'm going to do that again. After I have brought in the trader ID, I'm going to drag in again that here and go to next. So you notice it didn't ask me about that again. I click on finish. And once you go to the form view, it gives you records related to only this particular field. Okay. All right. So that is it for, excuse me. So that is it for the drag and drop. So what I've done with this drag and drop was to use the query. Again, you can use a form, right? By dragging in a form into the design view, you're going to get the subform again. So in this case, I'm going to use this here, which is a form I've created, which is this is a subform actually. So I'm just going to drag it in there. So drag in here and go back to the form view, and notice that this here, let's go into readjust this here. Let's adjust this, and so we can see the content here. All right. So we're going to go in again to see if, so you notice this again is showing us just what we are interested in. So we can drag in a query or drag in a table or drag in a form, right? So that is the drag and drop approach, creating a subform. All right, so this is a second approach in creating subforms. All right, so we're going to save this and we're going to move on to the third approach. Now, the third approach of creating a subform is using a subform control, okay, a subform or subreport control. Okay, so to do that, again, we're going to go to create, and then we go to form wizard. We select the particular table we are interested in, the trader table, drag in everything, finish, right? Then you go to the design view, and within the control tab here, okay, we're going to go to this drop down and click on this here, right? Which is a subform or subreport. Click and drag, okay? So once you click and drag, it pops up, it brings up some already existing forms. So again, I can just choose this subform here, or we can use a query, okay? Now, since we want to use a query, we keep to the first one, and we go to next, and then this time around, I'm going to use the query to and cast and for. So in this case, I'm going to use query to cast sold. So I go to the drop down and use query to cast sold, bring in all the fields, go to next, and again next, and finish, right? So once I do this here, it creates the subform I'm interested in. So when you go to the form view, that is it right there. We can readjust the length here. Click on that, double click on this length here, and then we reduce the length of this field here. Now we can go back again to the design view and adjust the length of this table here, okay? And then you drag to adjust, okay? We can use the same approach to bring in the second subform. So I'm just going to increase that and do, again, go to the design view. Within the control tabs, we click on this, which is subforms and control. We drag and drop. And then again, we are using an existing query. We're going to use the car here, the query 2, which is car and sold, bring in all the field next. And again, because I'm using the trader ID, which is linking that table, it will filter only the particular ID that is made show up there. So go to next and click on finish. So again, when you go to the form view, it brings up the two subforms as we require. So this is approach number 3. And then the very last one is what we're going to do. So the very last one is to create it manually. And so to create it manually, again, we're going to go to, again, form wizard, bring in the trader table, and then go to next, finish, okay? And then go again to the design view. And we're going to open up the space here and reduce that bit. And then bring the form footer right, stretch it a bit here. We're going to go again to the same tab here we started with, which is a subform, subform or report, okay, subform or subreport. And then again, you click and drag, but instead of doing any selection, you cancel. And then click on the property key or bring up the property field by doing FN F4. If you are on the Mac, that is Command F4. And then, or you can just right click and go to properties. And then when you come to data source here, where you have source, you select the field you are interested in. So in this case here, we're going to select the field. So we're going to click to the first query, which is car sold, right? Now you notice that immediately I selected car sold, this link table needs to be part here. So you need a master field link and then a child field link. These two here needs to be the same. And once this is part of the query you have created, there's no need to worry your head about that. And that will automatically create the subform for you. So if I close this and go back to the form here, I notice that the subform has been created. So within the design view, we can readjust the length here, okay, and go to the layout view and then double click to adjust the field length, and we can resize that here, right there. Okay, so these are the 4 ways to create subforms in Access. I hope you found this video useful. I encourage you to hit the subscription button, share the videos, and we'll meet again to look at D functions. That'll also be pretty soon. See you in the next tutorial for D lookup. Bye bye.